Here we go. Hi, everyone. Hello.
Hello,
Oh, I need to
we're
adjust
here.
this. Yes. Oh, we have so much. Here, I'm going to move our faces around. Give me 1 second. Now that we don't have a party of four,
Right.
I can do this. Hey, everyone. Oh, man, we got a good crowd here today. Let's confirm.
Yay.
Samantha's not watching the chat.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Just want to confirm that before we get into it. But yes, hi everyone. It's great to have everyone here. It's a great crowd. Um, I forgot to retweet that we're live, but it's fine because you're all here. Excellent, especially at our new time. So we are going to. Oh, and they're all saying hi to you, Samantha, even though you can't see their chat.
Oh,
um, this is going to be our new time going forward. So we're going to stick with 10 a.m. Pacific time. So change your calendars. I've changed the schedule on the Twitch channel, and I'll try to remind people as we go forward. But we are going to do 7 episodes today because that way we can get 2 really good episodes in, 5 sad episodes in, and then have 7 to do next week to close out season 6 because, oh my gosh, yeah, we're almost done. Yeah.
so exciting.
Yeah, seven of 9 episodes. Yeah. Good call, Baka. All
But
right. Yes, that
well
was
done.
perfect. Okay, so we are sandwiching these episodes. This is season 6, episodes 13 through 19. So episode 13 is Far Beyond the Stars, and episode 19 is In the Pale Moonlight. So heavy stuff. And it's gonna be great. So let's dive into Far Beyond the Stars.
Yeah.
Whew. So I would like to just kind of hand this over to you because yeah, people are saying in the chat they're like favorite episode. I've seen this so many times. I would just love to hear from you on your very first time watching Far Beyond the Stars. Just before you dive in, just to remind people, in case you don't remember, this is the episode where Cisco is basically like having a stress breakdown and his dad is visiting him and he starts having dreams that he's a sci-fi writer in the 1950s in New
Yeah.
York City and reality starts to blur. So, what'd you think?
Such a great episode. I mean, I can see why it would be a huge favorite among the fans. Like, I mean, it was so creative. It was so fun. And seeing all of the actors outside of their prosthetics and just hearing the voice and going, wait a second. I recognize, wait, is that, I think that might be like, it was that for like 10 minutes. And I think I got them all, except I saw on IMDb that Martok is in it, and I did not
Yes.
get who he was.
Martok is the illustrator that comes in and to sell them the drawings. Like he's in the beginning and he comes in, yeah, and they basically like take them and then Cisco sees or Benny sees the DS9 and takes that. So yeah, Martok is the illustrator.
Okay. I thought that might be it because I got almost everybody else. So that, yeah, awesome.
Yeah. Laura H wanted to know if when you recognized all of them or the usually masked ones.
When I recognize them?
Yeah, like how if it took you a while.
I got most of them in the first, I guess, 15 minutes of when he's there, obviously, because there's the setup part first. But Cork was pretty quick. Like his eyes are exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's so cool. And then Ducat's in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the other gangster people. He took me a while.
Yeah, Ducat and Wayoon, Jeffrey Holmes, they are both the 2 sort of cops in it.
Right,
yeah.
Outside the building, yeah.
Yeah.
Those 2 are the ones that took me the longest.
Okay.
But Worf I got immediately.
Yeah.
Just because... But his voice sounded so weird coming out of a normal looking person. It was like, that just doesn't compute. Like it was awesome because he's so cool. But yeah. So that part was really fun about the episode. And I mean, gosh, in today's world, like watching this right now, it's just like,
yeah,
good God, nothing's changed.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, some things have, yeah, but but the context of watching this right now was just really, um, I don't know, poignant's not the right word. Just the negative version of poignant.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it was crazy.
It is. And I think, first of all, DS Snyder fan, brilliant. Sad, but brilliant. But I think that's, you know, it's interesting because it forces us to reconcile, especially these days, although we have to recognize that it's like this has always been going on, and it's the prevalence of social media and that everyone has a camera that we're able to shine a light on it. But the fact that, you know, this was written in the 1990s and it's set 40 years prior, and it's trying to show like the sci-fi industry, and I think make it very allegorical to, like, you know, when they're pushing back against having him as a captain, having a black captain in his sci-fi story, to the extent that they kill it, like, they're it's very clear that they're trying to show that Deep Space Nine kind of had the same hurdles, right, as a show itself, having a black captain in the 90s, that people who were watching this were highly aware that this is, you know, that was a thing that people were upset about. But now with the Black Lives Matter movement, and which, let's establish, Black Lives Matter, this is a pro Black Lives Matter channel, that, you know, it's less about the captain sci-fi side of it and more about the Black Lives Matter movement. And it's really, really hard to watch, but I think it's important to watch.
Yeah, extremely. I mean, they just, the way they talk about it within the context of the story of the Odo playing the magazine runner, you know, it's I mean, as much as, yes, it's just blatantly racist and wrong to be saying there can't be a black captain in this issue, you know, his reasoning just kind of, it paints the gray areas that people were dealing with, or, you know, in those heightened times of, you know, he could lose his job. And that's wrong, again, like completely wrong. But he's thinking about that selfishly. He could lose his job. The rest of the people in the team could lose their jobs, and that kind of thing. It's like, and it's sort of, to me, it's just interesting to examine where that line is of, do you take a stand and in the short term, your personal life gets turned upside down, or do you sort of stay complicit with the times? And I don't know, that's just one that was a part of it that stood out to me.
Like the hard choices that people are making to try to be allies and yet also protect themselves and recognize their privilege. And Right. And I guess that's one of the huge things that's changed from then to now is the recognition of privilege, of your privilege. Like, then it was sort of like, this is the status quo, I can't do anything about it, rather than accepting that I am in a much higher advantage in society because of XYZ, because of my skin color. Like, the blatant truths of that are things that we're far more cognizant of today and being really vocal about. Whereas then it was just, that's the way it is. And that you want to protect yourself, as opposed to realizing that you have the privilege to choose to protect yourself. And so also I want to thank the chat for tolerating this being discussed by two white women, because we're not necessarily the best people to be discussing it, but in the context of our show and our stream, I really appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, but overall, like, I'm glad you enjoyed the episode. I think that it's a beautifully written episode, and it just pulls at your heart. And I think I always, and I'm going to try to say this without crying, but I still get very emotional at the end when, and I put the quote down here that I'm going to try to read without crying, but where Sisko's just saying, perhaps somewhere out there far beyond those stars, Benny Russell is dreaming of us. And I think DS Snyder fan brought that up as well. It's the best things about sci-fi and how it's a mirror on society, that, we're able to have these conversations and project that. And
100%. Yeah. I thought the way that this experience affected Cisco was quite interesting, in that he kind of comes out of it, reflecting on that, and reflecting on, maybe this is the dream. Like, maybe we're not real. Like,
yeah.
It's like, damn, Cisco. But yeah, the fact that he thinks about it in that context, and maybe that was a real person, and maybe what they're doing is, something he's dreaming about, that other Ben. And yeah, I mean, it was easily one of the best Star Trek episodes I think I've ever seen so far.
Awesome. Yeah. Emily said Far Beyond the Stars is their all-time favorite Trek episode ever. P. Stummish said, so Cisco's in the Matrix, which is how it feels watching it. But yeah, that it's the fact that, I mean, so many of us watch science fiction to escape and to dream of a better world. And so it's great when a show like this is so very clearly in that. Aw, Magic Head Psycho subscribed. Garrick Jazz Hands, thank you. All right, so I wanted to share this with the chat. Hi, Captain Quinn. This was an interview that I did last year with Mark Zicree, who wrote the teleplay for this episode. So if people haven't seen that, they can go to that link and check it out. But yeah, it's going into the detail of like how the episode was made and where it came from and everything. And it was written, at least the story concept was written by a white man, which is interesting in its own right. But also, I believe, and people can check me on this, that it was directed by, I'm sorry, I haven't had my coffee yet. The actor who plays Cisco.
Avery Brooks.
Avery Brooks, thank you.
He directed it.
I believe he directed this episode.
Wow.
I'm like 90% sure that that's right. So the chat can, correct me on that. But yeah, that it was important to him to tell the story as well.
That's really awesome. I also want to just bring up that I liked seeing his dad again.
Yeah.
Like, his dad is such a cool character. So interesting.
Yeah.
That he's like not part of the Starfleet life, but he's still a part of Jake and Cisco's life.
Yeah.
I really liked seeing him again.
Yeah.
In space.
Yeah. One of my favorite ones to see non-prosthetically is Aaron Eisenberg, Nog.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He took me a second too. Like, it was
yeah.
It was right after that scene ended that my brain went, I think that was Nog.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's really good. It's a great episode. So, thanks for the input in the chat. I appreciate everyone's thoughts, and it's a wonderful episode. So I'm glad this is one where it's like when my parents were like, okay, our daughter works for Star Trek, we should probably watch some Star Trek. This was one of the first episodes that I gave them to watch, because I think it's so accessible, and especially for my parents who are not sci-fi fans, it encapsulates like the beauty of science fiction and why people are sci-fi fans.
100%. Yeah, this would be a great one. If we should start a list of what to show your parents of Star Trek that are not into Star Trek, because my parents would appreciate this one too, and they're also not sci-fi people at all.
I'm pretty sure there's lots of input for that, but yes, definitely.
We should start like a tally.
I love it. Cool. I'm sure we could talk about this for an hour.
This could be an hour long.
Yeah. Any last must discuss thoughts on this one?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Let's move on.
So the next one goes to a little bit of levity. This is One Little Ship. So this is the one where the runabout with Dax, O'Brien, and Bashir are investigating an anomaly that's going to shrink their ship. And they get to about that big. And then the Defiant, who's there trying to help them investigate it and get through it, because they're like, hey, we're able to like use this technology, about this. Kira can't stop giggling about the whole thing. The Defiant gets boarded by the Jem'Hadar, and basically this tiny little Honey, I Shrunk the Kids episode. They have to save the ship. And This is a fun episode. It's not one that like I'll go out of my way to watch, but when it comes on, I'll definitely like I don't skip it. It's a really fun one.
Right.
So yeah. Anyway, what were your thoughts on this one?
Kind of the same, just sort of like giggle fest throughout. Like it was just funny and fun and like 100% Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Like I forgot to check if that movie had come out by the time this episode had come out, but that would be funny to know.
Oh, that's a good question. Do people know? Because it was probably around the same time.
It was probably around the same time.
D.S. Snyder brought up the poem that Worf makes at the end. The story of a little ship that went on a little trip.
Yeah. So I loved that this episode was kind of more about the ship, the little ship, as opposed to the Jem'Hadar like taking over the Defiant.
Right.
The Jem'Hadar happened to be there taking over the Defiant, but it's mostly about the ship like saving the day, and then the Jem'Hadar just all get killed. Yeah. So it's like that happened, but then it's all fine.
Yeah. D.S. Snyder fan said it did come out. That Honey, I Shrunk the Kids had come out before this episode, but the thing I love with the Jem'Hadar though is like they create this really good conflict with them where there's like now this, because they're able to breed and grow so quickly. Q Continuum, yay, cheer. I'll ask you real quick, can we advertise what we were planning? Yeah. Anyway,
what? Are you talking to me or talking
I'm talking to the chat. I'm sorry.
I was like, what are we planning? Are we planning something?
No, you're good. I'll mention it again at the end, but here, let me, I'm going to be on the Q Continuum stream on Thursday from 1 to 2 Pacific time. So definitely check that out.
Woo!
So yeah, good times. Anyway, I hope I spelled that right. And so the thing I love about the Jem'Hadar though in this one is because they breed so quickly, now they've like created a class system where they have like the Alpha Quadrant Jem'Hadar and the Gamma Quadrant Jem'Hadar, and they have this like battle of like who's better and all of that. So.
That's what they meant. Okay, I thought those were ranks of like A through G.
Oh, right. No, you're good. Yeah.
I was like, that's kind of strange that they'd have A, B, C, D.
No. That's what they meant. That they had basically started breeding them in the Alpha Quadrant because, remember, I think he mentions it like in one sentence, but it's basically because they killed so many in the wormhole that they like strategically were doing that. So
gotcha. Yeah. That makes a little way more sense.
Yeah. That's so funny. I love it. So yeah, and then the other part that I love in this episode, and it's all comedy, but the fact that in the little ship that went on a little trip, as they're flying around, they're like able to tell what Cisco and Worf and like everyone's doing, and Kira to try to deflect and their strategy and all that. And I love that.
That was brilliant. That was so like peak Starfleet intelligence, not like Starfleet smartness, of like, looks like they're trying to do this, but they have to do that first. And Nod's the most important one because he has to do that first. And then it was like, you guys are just so smart.
Exactly. And it's like they just work together so well as a team. Yeah. And yeah, Captain Quinn was like, well, Dr. Bashir is with them, and that's fair.
I love O'Brien. Oh my God. O'Brien just being, first of all, freaked out about getting small. It's like, we are going to be able to get big again, right? And then like just being to Bashir, he's like, you're coming with me. Like, we're going to suffer through this together.
Yeah, exactly. And then once they realize what's happened, like they can tell the size, and they just turn to O'Brien and they're like, you're not gonna like this. Things have gone bad.
Things took a turn.
It took a turn. It's so funny. I love it. So yeah, fun episode. It's definitely a one-off because like it's just reset everything at the end, but it's fun.
Exactly.
I enjoy it. All right. The next one, oh Jesus. All right, we're to O'Brien Must Suffer, episode number 2948. That's what I put in. So this is where O'Brien is tasked by Starfleet. This is Honor Among Thieves. O'Brien is tasked by Starfleet intelligence to infiltrate the Orion Syndicate, our good old crime ring, and he basically has to find the identity of the person in Starfleet who's leaking information about undercover operatives to the Syndicate. So I don't mind this one. This is, they oh, yeah, before, I'm so sorry, I forgot about, people in the chat reminded me about the best part of that episode is where they come back and they're talking about their heroism and they're like, I don't think you're the right height. I don't think that really happened. But
perfect Quark Odo odd couple moment. Like, just
so great.
Working together for the practical joke. Like,
yeah.
Loved it.
Exactly.
Bashir and O'Brien take them so seriously, and Bashir's like, infirmary.
And their competition takes over. Yeah, so great. Okay, anyway, thank you for reminding me about that. But yeah, Q Continuum mentioned, I'd love to sit in on O'Brien's counseling sessions. Because that dude must let out everything in that section because he's super chill otherwise. Right. But yeah, have you seen much of the Orion Syndicate before? Okay.
I don't think so. No, they've mostly just been mentioned, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, this episode was interesting. Mob bosses of space, basically. Like, I liked it. I was kind of definitely like tuned in to the story. One thing that was interesting was like the Starfleet guy, the O'Brien kept checking in with, like, I just kept thinking he was going to turn out to be the turncoat or not, because he acted evil. Like,
shady as hell.
Yeah, let's meet in the dark alley. I'm going to not wear Starfleet stuff, which I guess undercover, that makes sense. But at the same time, he was like, he didn't seem super legit, and he's someone I've never seen before. And Starfleet, as we know, they've got all these shady organizations anyway.
Yeah, like, exactly. As we'll find out in the next couple episodes. Yeah.
I don't know. So he kind of threw me off, and I kept thinking maybe this is another kind of simulation issue, and O'Brien's stuck in somebody's head, and like I was just something here does not seem real.
I love. Can we just appreciate for a second how suspicious Deep Space Nine has made you? That you're like, you trust nothing anymore, and rightfully so. I think. Also, thank you, DS9er fan. Hydrate. But yes, it's trust.
No kidding. Man. No kidding. Exactly. Especially when it comes to O'Brien, I'm like, this something else has got to be happening right now. But no, it was just mob bosses in space. With like a mob boss with a heart of gold, which I'm kind of here for. That's awesome. Kind of loved him by the end.
Love it.
His friends not so much. But I don't know. Yeah, I liked actually, all joking aside, I liked seeing O'Brien in this mode of actually having this pretty substantial job to do undercover.
Cool.
Like, that was kind of cool to me that he was getting that responsibility. Of course, he was there because somebody else had died.
Yeah.
So he was their second choice.
But he did it. Yeah.
He did it. Yeah. So that was cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
This is great. So chat, there's a few things. First of all, I mentioned Captain Quinn points out he had a cat, the mob boss, with a heart of gold.
Yes, he did.
Some discussion about seeing Orion, whether we saw Orion in Enterprise or in Lower Decks for the first time. But I did want to point out to you, because you haven't seen Enterprise though, but you can now maybe appreciate why Tendi in Lower Decks is so like, why she hated being like stereotyped as that, pirate scumbag type character, because this is what the Orions were mostly known for. But
right,
yeah, good times. DS9er fan says you're now ready to be an Obsidian Order operative now that you're so suspicious. And carrying on with the therapy session discussion, O'Brien didn't really have it too hard. He had it hard in the past, then TNG was a little bit of a break, and then in Deep Space Nine, Troy mostly had her hands full with Barclay. So, yeah.
Right.
Good times. But yeah, I mean, it's a I think it's a fun episode. It's just one of those where it's like Deep Space Nine just embraces that darker side of Star Trek, and I think it's interesting. So
yeah, absolutely. And then I guess we learn that the Ryan Syndicate and the Dominion are working together.
yes, or at least the Orion Syndicate is neutral and maybe feeding information. They're worried that they're feeding information to the Dominion in exchange for goods and weapons and if I remember correctly. But yeah.
Right.
Can we also appreciate, as maybe, I know certainly I was this type of person when I worked in engineering, that when you leave, everything breaks.
That was one of the best cold opens ever.
Everything's breaking.
Yep. And Kira, like, by the end is like, let me guess. Something is broken.
It's all broken. And they're like, dude, he's the only one that holds it all together. We all know an O'Brien. It's perfect. Yeah, comedy. It's all job security. I know. But like, I remember when I was doing research in Glasgow, I didn't work in the lab, in the optics lab, but I know that we always knew it was like when Ken went on holiday, something would break. That was exactly it. So we love it. I'm still loving the chat too, by the way. There's a lot. It's devolved into discussions about Barkley and counseling. Nice. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's an interesting. I like it. It's a good episode.
It's a good one. Yeah, it's definitely a solid episode.
Yeah. All right, next one, Change of Heart. So this is where Dax and Worf are sent on a mission by themselves to rendezvous with a Cardassian defector. Dax gets wounded, and Worf has to make the choice between saving his wife or completing the mission. And then on the ship, the B plot, which I have to mention because I love, O'Brien is trying to teach Julian Bashir how to win a game of Tongo to break Quark's winning streak. It's so good.
Oh my God.
This has some heavy and beautiful and awesome Dax and Worf moments. So definitely curious what you thought of this one.
This was easily so far my favorite Dax Worf episode. Maybe a very close second to the wedding.
Yay! I love it. The wedding's my favorite one. But yeah, this is a really good one.
I think in this one I got the fullest sense of their relationship, particularly from Worf, and he was so much more open. And this was the one, like, their relationships always made sense, and I've always been here for it. But I felt like we haven't seen them really as a couple so together. I was going to say symbiotic. Because like on the Ryza episode, it was all about Worf not wanting to be there and her
grumpy
being
Worf.
being kind of overbearing, honestly. Like, I did not like Jadzia in that episode so much. So their relationship was more for comedy there. And this is one where I really felt like, okay, they totally are in this super together, one-to-one. Like, they matched way more perfectly to me than I've felt before, other than the wedding.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I just loved seeing that, particularly from Worf.
Yeah. I think one of the best, I agree. Emily pointed out that Dax and Worf are the ultimate power couple.
Yeah.
I mean, agreed. I love, one of my favorite moments that's always stuck out for me is where, with the joke, where he's like, it's a joke. I get it. It's not funny, but I get it. Yes. So great. It's so
one of my favorite lines.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that was definitely cue, something we discussed in the Rise episode of like the importance of traveling when you're in a relationship. Learning how you deal with stuff, because that was a thing, but they got it. This was an interesting concept too that I really like, because when it comes to spouse versus mission, like, that is something that is considered constantly, particularly with space travel. So there's a great book called Packing for Mars by Mary Roach. I've recommended it lots of times, but recommending it again. But she goes into the research that's been done on how to assemble the most perfect crew to do a long-term mission together. And like, how do you like mix up genders? Do you send couples? Do you send families? Like, how do you, or partners at least? And but one of the big things is like, yes, partners, as we see with Jadzia and Worf, can do missions together really well. And I think, like, I would say this is the same with like my partner and me, because we met at work and we're freaking power couple, and like we can get stuff done when we're working together. But the big downside of that is that when something goes wrong, the spouse will be compromised to prioritize them over the mission. And I mean, that's the whole point of this episode. And I think they explore it really, really well.
I think they do. Yeah. And like they took their time to explore that with this episode. And at first they're both on the same page. You know, Jadzia is like, you need to go. I can't. You have to complete this mission. And Worf tries. He gets halfway there and then just he can't do it. And then I loved Sisko's their exchange at the end, where Sisko is definitely like, this is going in your report. You're not going to get a command. You're this was really bad. And then lets Worf take that in, and then has another beat where he says, not as your captain, I would have done the same thing. And that's a really powerful statement.
Yeah. That you have to, and that's, again, I think they do such a good job of balancing, especially because it's like these episodes, this whole set of episodes is, I mean, it culminates in the end that we're going to talk about, but this is all about how this Dominion War is taking a toll. And people are exhausted and they're compromised constantly, and they're losing things, and they're trying to make all these decisions. Q's got an interesting point that this is a big character development for Worf, with the honor and getting the mission done and prioritizing Starfleet to take the hit, and that how much he loves Jadzia.
Yeah, I thought that too. And I think that's probably part of what I was mentioning in the beginning of what stood out to me is this is the first time I felt like I saw, because that's such a big sacrifice for him, I saw how much he truly loves her, and not that I didn't believe it before or anything. It's just, this was really made it just so much more apparent.
Laura, you're going to make me cry. Laura H. pointed out that he's always wanted to be married.
Yeah.
He has. No. Yeah, it's good. It's nice to see. So let's talk briefly about the comedy part of this episode.
Yes.
Which is poor Bashir trying to beat Quark at Tango.
That moment when Quark plays with his head about Jadzia, like that to me did not make sense. I was like, I thought we were done with that. Like, why is that coming up again? What's the point? Like, Bashir, like the fact that Quark's saying that would make Bashir so off and go into his own little world. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It seemed really random.
Yeah. Why they would bring up Bashir being in
why
love
they'd
with
make
Dax
that happen.
again.
Yeah. So I didn't like that. But other than that, just watching them try to play Tonga was
hilarious. It's hilarious. And just I
loved when Bashir comes in the talks. He's like, "Hey, are you ready? Like, we gotta go." And O'Brien's like, "No, I gotta learn this game." And Bashir's like, "You're not gonna know how to play Tonga in an evening. Just watch me." Or O'Brien, and shows Bashir the instructions. Bashir's like, "Yep, okay, I know how to play."
Yeah.
Half a second at the instructions.
Just reminding. Yep. Oh God, that's so funny. So good.
Yeah.
You have can we mention your last note in here?
Yeah.
On this episode?
What did I say? Oh, yeah. So every time something happens to Dax, and she's close to death, I think about, the symbiont and what that means for Worf and Dax's relationship, because I'm really curious.
This is a big point on our mind right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh dear. Good times. All right. So let's get into wrongs darker than death or night.
Must we?
God damn this episode. I hate this episode. I just viscerally hate this episode. So remember, chat, Samantha's not watching the chat. So just saying. Wrongs darker than death or night. This is where Gul Dukat is basically telling Kira that her mother was his lover, and Kira time travels and finds out the truth, and it's awful, and the episode is called Wrongs Darker Than Death or Night, and it is the perfect title because that's exactly what this episode is. It is wrong, it's horrible, and I hate it, and I hate it, and it's dumb, and it's stupid, and I hate it.
Stupid episode.
Stupid, bad episode. I mean,
bad,
but punish episode, yeah.
Oh. Right, it's right because it's not bad, but it's bad. Oh God, yeah. I just think like poor Kira has to keep finding out things that are true that she did.
So Q asked, "Can we also talk about how much Kira suffers in Deep Space Nine?" I think it culminates. Not culminate, but it gets pretty close in this one. It's like peak suffering.
Yeah. But. Yeah. Peak. Yeah, I mean, she has to find out that her mother essentially collaborated for comfort. Which, granted, is complicated again, but she also has to learn then that part of the reason, not the entire reason, but part of the reason she survived was because of Gul Dukat. And ew.
Yeah.
Oh.
And that he wants to bang both her and her mom.
Yeah. And also conceivable that oh God, I forgot her name already. Zial.
Yeah.
Is her half sister.
Good point. Good point.
I mean, surely Dukat had more than one, Bajoran woman in the amount of time, but still, the way Kira's life is going, I wouldn't give it. I would believe it.
Yeah, fair. Q brought up that we have between Zial, Dukat, Bareil finding out Wynn's a shitheel, losing Opaka, Shakar breaking up with her, and now her mom. That's a lot. Well, and I think too, like, the big character arc, right, is that, for Kira, she went in, if we're talking about Deep Space Nine as like the series and Kira's character arc over the series, she starts out hard and fast. Bajoran is, she's a Bajoran rebel, fought for the rebellion. Awesome. That was her hard and fast way. And then finding out all of the gray areas in between during this war, having to work with the Cardassians, finding out that even the rebellion itself wasn't exactly black and white, like, because she was so young, which I think a lot of us can relate to. Learning that it wasn't black and white, and learning how people had to make sacrifices while she's also making sacrifices and hard decisions during this war itself. It's brilliantly written. It's just hard.
Yeah, exactly. The way that her character has evolved that way has been wonderfully portrayed. Just poor Kira.
And how her relationship with Sisko evolves. And I guess maybe, so there's an interesting thing going on with the chat where talking about O'Brien must suffer versus Kira must suffer. And I think maybe, I'm just speculating, maybe the reason we don't say Kira must suffer a lot is because it's so clearly an arc for her. Yeah. Whereas with O'Brien, they just punish him.
Yeah.
he's not going through a big emotional, realization.
Yeah. It's just anytime there's an episode where something awful has to happen or character has to go through something that's like a one-off, it's O'Brien.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
I had an interesting thought at the beginning of this episode when Kira's asking Cisco like permission to go to Bajor and do this time travel thing. Mm-hmm. I thought it was it seemed a little unfair of her to put Cisco in that position of like, she's like, but I'm not asking you as the captain, I'm asking you as the emissary. So he's put in the position of, well, I sent this, I allowed one of my officers to go do this time travel thing where, temporal laws could be broken, but it wasn't me, it was the emissary.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, that's a little,
puts him in a tough situation.
Muddy.
Yeah. That's interesting. And I think their relationship has always been fascinating to just kind of see how they evolve. And I enjoy that a lot. And and they didn't get in trouble from the temporal police.
No, they did not.
All right, let's talk about Inquisition, because I want to give plenty of time to talk about in the Pale Moonlight, because that's another episode that we could talk for an hour about. But Inquisition, this is an interesting one. I think this is pretty quick about this. This is where Bashir is basically on his way to a conference and gets stopped on his way to his conference because they are keeping everyone on the ship because the Starfleet is there to investigate someone being a spy for the Dominion and is basically accusing Bashir of it. And this is Section 31. What do you think?
Well, first off, I feel like I've heard of Section 31. Like, is this something
you have?
Like,
you
okay.
heard about it in Discovery because you watched Discovery.
Oh,
that was what Giorgio joined. That was the spy Black Ops that Giorgio went to after. Sorry, spoiler alert.
Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I was like, there's something, I know I've heard of that. And then just kept thinking like Section 31, Area 51, like I got those.
Yeah.
But no, this was a good episode, except it was kind of like that one where Kira turned into the Cardassian. They made her look like one and tried to convince her that she had been, or she was Cardassian. And through the whole thing, I'm like, it's very convincing. And I was like, that's okay. I'll still love you, Kira,
Yeah.
And this one, like literally I was eating and the part comes up where Wayne like zaps him out of the cell or whatever. And I was just like, like I just stopped wait a second, is this true? Like it seemed true. And then it's like the very end, like the 5 minutes, it's like holodeck stuff. Oh
yeah,
I was not happy.
It was all a lie.
I was not a happy camper. I was like, my man Bashir is not a spy.
Yeah, exactly.
I was so worried.
We've learned, and DS Snyder fan pointed out, never go on vacation or to a conference in Starfleet ever.
Just don't do it.
Just don't do it. It's not worth it. Because it's like, they basically, this is one, and it's kind of like what you talked about, that they drag you along pretty well. It's pretty convincing. And then essentially at the end, they're like, yeah, since like basically minute 1, it's been a holodeck simulation. And yeah.
Yeah.
And we went to Section 31. And Sloane's pretty good. I don't mind him. I think he's pretty good. I can't see him as anything other than the Die Hard dude, but from Die Hard.
Yeah, he's in something else. I forget what it is now, but I IMDb'd him too. I know him from something else.
Been in a lot of things for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So my main question at the end was this mainly a recruitment exercise, or was this actually trying to figure out if Bashir was a spy?
Ooh, good question. I don't know. Chat, I'm curious what the chat thinks. I surmise that they wanted to just make sure. And I'm not going to get too much into this, but when you get a job for the federal government with a secret clearance, right, they investigate everything. Depending on the clearance you get, you have to do a polygraph test. And I feel like this is the polygraph test of joining Section 31. They've done the whole background check. They've figured out that he would work, but they got to do one last recruitment check to just make sure that he's not a spy. Yeah. Because it's one of those things, it's like they know, but they want to make sure that they're not trapping him in anything.
Right.
Yeah. Also in Die Hard 2 was called Meanie O'Brien.
Nice.
And, yes, good times. All right. Shall we talk about the last episode?
Yeah.
Because they kind of leave it as Section 31. Will he join them? Will he not? They're trying to recruit them. Yeah, so that was our introduction. And also, really interesting, there's no B plot in this episode at all. It's literally just interrogating Bashir the whole time. Which makes sense because it was all a hologram, but...
The B-plot's just Bashir trying to get his scones. Like...
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. Okay. Strap in, folks. In the Pale Moonlight. This is Samantha, FYI, this is frequently listed as one of the greatest Star Trek episodes of all time.
I can see it.
Yeah. So, with mounting losses in the Federation Dominion War and the specter of defeat, Sisko enlists Garrick's help to persuade the Romulans to join the Alliance to win the war. However, he has to realize that to save the Federation, he has to betray all the values. Let's just put it that way. All the values. Okay, over to you.
I mean, yeah, great episode. I think I would benefit from more repeat viewings, like just because watching it as a first time viewer in the context of watching the show, like I'm trying to pay attention to the story as well as the episodic and types of episodes and everything. But yeah, I mean, noticing the changing format, like I loved the way they shot this. Very just intriguing and beautifully acted. And I loved seeing Garrick again. I realized we haven't seen him in a little while.
Yeah,
so when he comes on, I was like, yay, it's Garrick.
Garrick's back. My alien space boyfriend number 2.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, really watching Sisko deal with these enormous gray areas, because he's just fed up, and he's reaching a breaking point of, as a leader, of I can't post this list one more time. Yeah. And I really appreciate that they explored that in him. And then I think you have this down in your notes too, but that last line is just brilliant. Of computer erase the log. I was just like, oh my God. Wow.
So good. Yeah, it's so interesting. This is one episode where it's so good, I managed to block out how it ends. So every time I watch it, I can get really into it. I love the fact that everyone's making fun of me with space boyfriends. I love that the way the log is framed, and then how, like you said, it's like he has to work with Garrick, he has to work with Quark. He's starting to do things where it's like Bashir is like, you can make me do this, but this is under protest and I'm not okay with this. And that's someone who Sisko respects, and he's like Starfleet hardcore all the way. But every time he starts to waver, he has to post that list again. Yeah. And he's just like, I have to keep doing this, and I will take this. So Laura, so the one I always forget is I always remember that it's a fake. And which now, Samantha, again, you can add to your meme list of watching Star Trek for the first time.
Meme count number 2.
And then blowing up the ship, and how that'll cover it up. They'll find the data stick regardless. They've already killed the senator. Laura H asked us as well as the chat, do you think Garrick always intended to blow up the ship and that the hologram scheme was just to placate Sisko because Garrick, and I'm adding now that like, because Garrick probably knew that convincing Sisko to assassinate him was probably a bit too far.
A bit too far, but yeah, but I think 100% he planned to blow up the ship. And yeah, I think he was reading Sisko going down this path, and yes, assassination's a bit too far, but Sisko's gone this far, therefore that's going to be okay.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I think it's interesting to see how Garrick operates where, especially when Sisko's like, we're not pulling the Taylor crap, I know you can do this for me, like, let's get this done. And he's like, all right. And then he's like, by the way, all my bros died. We got to come up with something. Yeah.
And there were so many moments in this where Sisko and Garrick are talking, and Sisko's like, where did you get that information? And Garrick, like, without missing a beat, is like, I'd rather not reveal my sources. And Sisko's like, and where did you get that materials? And Garrick's, without missing a beat, I'd rather not reveal that. And then just keeps going. And so it's these moments of like, who are you?
Yeah, exactly. Bad Panda Bear said, I think he was always planning to blow up the ship, but the hologram was part of the plan. Like, he had to have the hologram part, but that was just an anchor in it. That he played every angle, as Peace Damage said. Q said, I think Sisko always had that breaking point, though. Considering an emissary, he was ready to resign Starfleet and cast it all aside. This brings him back to the brink emotionally. And it's just an avenue to get there. DS Pan's like, Garrick always has plans 3 or 4 ready to go. And then, yeah, the Captain Quinn making that fake one that even, and this is the thing, it's like, with the Tal Shiar and the Obsidian Order, like, Garrick knows what's going to pass and what's not, right? So he's like, this little, janky dude that I've hired to make this hologram is not going to make it good enough.
Right.
This will cover it up.
This will help us get to this next part of my plan. Yeah. So I think he was definitely not worried about the legitimacy of the holo recording.
Yeah.
Like, and he knew that, but Sisko didn't. And Sisko's like, he's going to want to check the recording. So we got to make sure it's really good. And is this the best guy for it? And Garrick's just kind of like, yeah. Because he knows that the next part is really the end game.
Can we talk about that guy too? And I didn't write his name down, but the one they hired to do the hologram, the scumbaggy dude, when he gets into a fight with Quark at the bar because he was harassing one of the Dabo girls, and like when Odo's briefing Sisko on it, and he's basically like, Quark, in a surprising act of chivalry, came to the rescue. And of course, we always love injured, whining Ferengi.
Oh yes.
But yeah, just that whole scene is great. And then when Quark realizes like that Sisko has stooped to this level of working with this guy, and he knows something's up. And I love when Quark basically is like, all right, 98th rule of acquisition. Every man has his price. Thank you for confirming that, Sisko. And that was one of Sisko's moments where he's like, ugh. And then he was like, oh yeah, I have to post a list again. And
yeah.
It's brutal. I have a funny anecdote from, which I think maybe some of the people in the chat may have been there for, on the Star Trek cruise. One of my favorite things to do on the Star Trek cruise when I'm not doing my own shows is to just take part in the trivia. Like, anytime I can take part in the trivia, I'll take part in the trivia. And it just has some hilarious moments. And it's always hosted by Jordan Hoffman and one of the, other guests on the cruise. Anyway, they did I think it was with Nana Visitor, where they were doing Deep Space Nine trivia. And the 10th question of the trivia is like, 20th question, I think, is bonkers hard. Bonkers hard. And like one time they had to write out all of Loxana Troy's titles like, to win perfectly. Someone got it.
Of course.
And then, but one of the trivia ones I'll never forget was getting this last quote of Sisko perfectly. And like there were so many people who had computer erase the entire log, computer erase my entire log, and but erase that entire personal log in perfect
That's
order.
good. That's a good one.
It was really good. But it's just such a classic. It's such a great episode.
Yeah.
I really, really like it. So I'm just catching up on the chat a little bit here. Yeah, DS Snyder fans, that Sisko's such a complex character. He's done great good and great evil, but he has a strong moral compass. And I think like he can live with that. Q said, I think Quark knows now that Sisko shouldn't be trifled with even more than he did prior, because he thought he was protected by Starfleet morality, which Quark also makes fun of a lot, but now seeing the ruthlessness at Sisko's disposal. I think that's a really good point. And then I'm not going to mention Q's next one because that's coming up. There's so much more. It's going to get so much darker. So much more intense.
Oh, I'm so excited.
We are only at the brink of tragedy.
Oh no.
so much sadness. Oh my god. This is where I start regularly crying in Deep Space Nine episodes. It's like basically from here on. Basically starting from Far Beyond the Stars, and then I always get chills in this episode, in the Pale Moonlight, when not just the end, but when he says like at 0700 today, the Romulans declared war against the Dominion, and it's like, whoa, it worked. It's so good.
Yeah.
But we love it.
We love it. And I like that this episode is again exploring that, do the ends justify the means?
Yeah.
Question.
I think to the ultimate, like this is that episode that questions that, right? That's something we see a lot in Star Trek. We've seen it in Voyager, we saw it in TNG, we've seen it in the original series, but I think this one so clearly lays it out. And
like that, that is the question or the hypothesis of the episode.
Yeah.
Like, let's explore that question.
It's really good. All right. So Cairo asked, are we having Romulans move in with us on Deep Space Nine now? Pretty much. I will say though, like, I'm sad that we don't get to see Vreenak more, because he was such a good Romulan. He was such a good Romulan. I really enjoy him as a character. But okay, so next week, we will be finishing up season 6. I know.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Episode 20 through 26 we will be doing next week. So brace yourself. And yeah. We'll be back at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Samantha thinks she knows what's happening, and we'll find out if that's true or not. But we'll try to continue avoiding spoilers. And
so glad I'm not watching the chat.
yeah. And I'll be back throughout the week, and don't forget I'll be on the Q Continuum as well on Thursday from 1 to 2 Pacific time, and I'm going to give Q the opportunity to post that again in the chat, the link to it on YouTube, on their YouTube page, if they're still there. And have fun, Samantha.
Okay. Now I'm nervous.
We'll see you next week.
Okay.
It'll be fine. I'm gonna send the channel over to Rivals of Waterdeep. They just started their new season. It's a fabulous tabletop group with some awesome people. So definitely go check it out. Sit back, stand up, stretch, have some water, enjoy their show, because they are fabulous, and I feel bad every week that I sit on top of their the beginning of the thing. So yeah, thank you everyone. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.
Bye.